I'd like to start. It's 11 a.m. Told you guys what we're doing here. I would like to start by saying thank you so much to Talkspace for wanting to hang out with me and have this chat with us and our community. I am really, really, really excited about it. I think it'll be great. So thank you so much, Talkspace, for partnering with us. And doing this. I think it's going to be awesome. I am going to give Dr. Rice a call now. And I'd like to encourage you, !Talkspace. You can use our code Sydeon, and it grants a $120 discount to users signing up to Talkspace. So I think that's really great. !Talkspace, you can get the link to head over to Talkspace. It's also down below in my panels. And yeah, you get a discount when you get started. So let's give Dr. Megan a call. Also, my first time on call with her, so she might be really loud when we first hello. Hi.
Sydney.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Hello.
You too. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really, really excited about this. So hello, I'm Sydney. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to my chat and letting them know who you are and a little bit about Talkspace, that would be great.
I would love to. Yeah, my name is Dr. Megan Rice, and I've been in the mental health field for about 10 years at this point. So a full decade of helping people, getting to the best version of themselves. I've really been in every niche at this point in time. So, community mental health and, psychiatric institutions, and now morphing into the future, private practice. And I'm also the Talkspace peer consultation team lead. So I have slowly morphed into this teaching, training, mentoring therapist in their role, in their work with clients in a variety of different capacities. And I help run a team that really helps therapists understand, the little nuances that come with telehealth, online mental health therapy, rather than just being in a face-to-face, private practice setting or community mental health setting. Where technology is not necessarily a thing or in the forefront of work. So super cool stuff. Obviously,
Yeah.
Talkspace, is the is the latest and greatest. Thanks to COVID, thanks to the world in general. I think shifting over to accessing therapy within the comfort of your own home. Now we have that, we have this specialized platform where we get to, do text messaging back and forth throughout our day, if that's convenient. We get to send audio recordings, right? Like a 5-minute audio recording, like, hey, I'm your therapist. I've got, all these coping skills, all these different tools in my toolbox that I want to share with you. We have video recordings, right? So we can like put our face up there and say like, hey, I'm your therapist. Look at me, look at my facial expressions.
Yeah.
Look how excited I am to see you. And then obviously still the live video sessions. So that private practice feel, that community mental health feel where you're in real life, you can get your therapist on the line and do an actual video call, right? So like see the real life experience, just still, you can wear PJs on bottom if you want to. You can, be snacking in the background, underneath your table or underneath your chair. You can go to the bathroom when you want to. That feels kind of nice. So yeah, we're morphing into this world where like I don't think mental health stigma is going to be as much of a thing. I think it's just going to be that kind of easy that we can weave it into our regular lives. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, wow, there's all sorts of exciting stuff that I can't wait to talk about. It sounds like you wear a lot of different hats in this community and in this space, so it's going to be really awesome for us to be able to like talk to you and pick your brain about everything. One of the things that you mentioned was the stigma surrounding like this general like mental health therapy conversation, and I'm really curious to hear about like what you think about that, ways that we can break down those boundaries, like what can we do as individuals, and then like what's being done maybe at like your guys' level to help with that stigma that surrounds mental health conversations.
Yeah. So I think about, this stigmatized view as being more so like pre-COVID, I guess. Maybe that's me just being overly optimistic, but um, I think about it being more pre-COVID because we were talking about like a lot of face-to-face sessions. And when I think about a face-to-face session, I'm thinking about like, okay, you have to have, some means of transportation, for a lot of
Yeah.
our clients, for a lot of people in the world. transportation is not easily accessible. It's
Yeah.
not as convenient as like just jumping in a car or jumping on a bus or, jumping on the subway or a train. And so, like, I feel like that held a lot of people back, just
Hmm.
that particular resource that we're not having to deal with anymore, right? Like I said, comfort in our own home. We can start to like bring therapy to us where we're at rather than having to spend that resource going out and about into the world.
Yeah.
I also think about, being seen in a mental health clinic, right? Or private practice or a community mental health center, a behavioral health facility. I think about being seen in that context in real life. And, people are concerned about their reputation, rightly so. And they're concerned about,
Oh.
yeah, they're concerned about like that falling on the wrong crowd or falling on the wrong setting. And so imagine a world where we're not going out and about. So the odds of you being able to, be in a real life setting and someone recognize you or someone say like, oh, obviously their level of dysfunction goes
Yeah.
way past normal limits, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't have that risk anymore. And so I feel like we're kind of decreasing the stigma with that too. Like this could be totally anonymous if you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you don't even have to show up on a live video session. You don't have to show up and like show your face at all. I mean, I've had clients, it's not recommended obviously because there's risk, but I've had clients like not even use their real name. um
Mm.
because they want the anonymity.
Yeah.
They've chosen the telehealth world for that confidentiality piece. So I think about that kind of being a non-existent topic anymore, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the reputation piece. Also thinking pre-COVID, just like this need to show up, right? So like yes, that's part of a counseling session is putting yourself together and showing up. But there's a lot more steps that have to happen if you're talking about going in real life, face to
Yeah.
face. There's putting on maybe a decent outfit, whereas at home you can show up in your PJs or, maybe you have no bottoms on. That's totally cool as long as you like stay in your seat. I think about all the extra efforts that have to be made to like show up in real
Yeah.
life, and like why not decrease that by having this setting where, I mean, show up as you are in your natural form. Don't shower if you don't want to, because maybe you just want to do maybe you just want to do messaging, right? Like you don't have
Yeah.
to put on deodorant. You can like hop, skip, and a jump to get a snack or go to the bathroom or, change rooms in your home if you're feeling a little burnt out on one particular room.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think that was
yeah.
actually one of the biggest issues that I had when it came to like pursuing therapy was like this is something that I think I should, really try or get, give it a shot, whatever, but I didn't want to go. I was like, the last thing that I want to do is get in a car and find parking wherever I'm going and like all of this kind of stuff. So it's so exciting to see. I don't know if you would you attribute all of this kind of surge in telehealth stuff to COVID, or do you think that it was inevitable since we're like moving to this digital age anyways?
I think it was inevitable,
Yeah.
honestly, but I do think it's been like pushed into overdrive, which
Yeah, yeah.
really makes me happy because I think about like societal trends, right? It's usually
Hmm.
slower going. But I think like the overdrive push has really like sent this into a level of momentum that we can't avoid, right? Like we
Yeah.
can't ignore it anymore. Like we have to do this or else, like our society can't keep up in a lot of ways. So I like the force. I like the
Yeah.
push. I like the extra incentive, to get to this place that's a little bit more achievable. But you're right. Like it's so hard to just show up.
Yes.
I think about, I was born and raised Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and I think about like I-25 and how crazy that traffic
Mm.
is. And like if you're seeing a provider in downtown Denver, and you're on the outskirts of Denver, like you're never going to make it on time. Like you could leave 2 hours in advance and you're not going to make your appointment, any appointment ever on time,
Gotcha.
right? So it's just this whole like, okay, my appointment's in 5 minutes. I'm going to a confidential setting, right? It's
Yeah.
just so much easier to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to do this from the comfort of your own home, on your couch, in your bed, or whatever, it sounds absolutely amazing. Um, I'm really curious, just to hear about what you think the general benefits of therapy are. So like I get asked a lot by my chat or just people, because I talk about the fact that I go to therapy because I found it so beneficial for me. But I think it would be great for, you know, my chat to hear about what you think the purpose or the benefits are.
Yeah, and I talk about this all the time, even with my current clients, my friends, my family members, anybody that will listen to my soapbox. I'm big on sharing this idea that, like, okay, we have plenty of people for the most part in our lives that love and care for us.
Hmm.
But just because people love and care for us doesn't mean they know the right answer to what's best for us.
Hmm.
And so it's just this means of like switching up the lens a little bit, like switching up the perspective enough to say, like, okay, this professional, if you find the right fit therapeutically, this professional is here showing up in this space non-biased,
Yeah.
impartial, really looking to just give me options. Like most of us are trained to just like plop all these options in front of our clients and say, like, what do you think? Do you think any of these choices would be better than what you're doing now? Or would any of these choices lead to a better version of you than you're currently pursuing? Right. So, like,
Yeah.
take whatever option you want, but like I'm the one saying from a global perspective, I've seen these other things work. So if you haven't tried them, maybe we experiment with them and see if there's a better way. I don't think our friends and family members, the people that love and care for us, can plop those options down in our lap in
Yeah.
quite such a sufficient way because there's attachment there, right? Like
Hmm.
they maybe are not wanting you to pursue a certain career field because they've decided that that's going to take you away from them, right? So,
Mm.
like, shutting down those options because they don't want to lose us. Rightly so. I mean, that I
Yeah.
think that makes perfect sense, but at the same time, also really limiting. Whereas a professional can be not attached to their clients necessarily and say, like, I don't really care what direction you go.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in sharing these options with you so you could maybe make a better choice if you felt like that was applicable to you.
Absolutely. And like as a therapist, having seen so many clients, you probably have so much experience with these different things that you can offer. Whereas like my mom has only lived her life and she hasn't spent, you know, years trying to develop these skills. So it's really awesome to be able to hear like that different perspective. One of my other favorite things, I think you mentioned too, the kind of like the disconnect. Like I don't personally enjoy spilling all of my tea to my friends. It's like not a comfortable situation for me, so I don't like talk about those kind of things a lot. But then I go to therapy and I lay it all on the table and it just feels the best because you have this person who
I love that.
yeah, like you just have this person who like doesn't is not going to try and influence you in any way that's like bias or anything like that. She just listens and then gives you these different perspectives that like my mom couldn't give. So it's really really great. Um you had mentioned something while you were talking just about like finding the person that works for you. And I was curious, how do you think someone should go about finding the right therapist? What am I supposed to look for? Are there like therapist red flags like there are in relationships? Like how would you suggest people go about that?
Yeah, so I was actually honestly going to say that, it's kind of like swiping, if you're going to do
Yeah.
Tinder or you're going to do Bumble BFF or, Match.com or eHarmony. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that swipe thing I would encourage in most people in their search for a therapist. Do we go out, dating different people and like land on the first one and say like, oh, yep, you're my forever partner? Or do we land on a couple people and we're like, ooh, yeah, you're not the prince or the princess that I was looking for. You're very much the toad. The
Yeah.
toad that's not going to work for me. Yeah, I think therapists are the same way. Honestly,
Mm.
we're human beings.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We are covered in flaws. We are covered in imperfections. And it's not necessarily like going about trying to find a therapist that is perfect in all of their glory, right? It's just about finding someone, a therapist that has flaws that are in alignment with your needs. So, I think about, for example, a red flag, like if we were talking about like a global red flag, right? I'm not interested personally in, another therapist. If we're training therapists or we're kind of in this world of working with therapists as peers, I'm not interested in therapists that can't be empathetic or
Mm.
sympathetic. That is a quality I think that is universal across the board, that if you can't like genuinely put yourself into someone else's situation, I have a hard time believing that you'll be able to kind of align with them enough, connect with them enough to where they feel like this is a trustworthy, safe setting for them to be totally transparent in their natural form.
Yeah.
I also talk about that. I specialize in couples counseling, and I also
Hmm.
talk about that trait with relationships. I don't think you're going to have a relationship that's successful or productive with someone who can't genuinely like see your life from your lens, like put
Yeah.
themselves in your situation. Yeah. So, um, not necessarily, like I said, looking for perfection, but at the same time, looking for like some key staples that are going to create the safe enough nest where, like you shared, going to that therapeutic setting and like totally unloading in your
Oh yeah.
natural form. Like most of my clients cry often,
Yeah. Me too.
in therapy with me, like they let it all out. I think about like my younger adults that I see, and, so many things are happening in their life at any given
Yeah.
time, school and work, and like trying to detach from their parents a little bit and their caregivers. And there's like so many moving pieces. So when they finally get a chance to just like come unglued, it gets really ugly. And I don't know that, they want to do that to their friends or family members, like you talked about, you don't
Hmm.
want to like totally unload on someone. So I really think the therapeutic characteristics need to be in alignment with the empathy sympathy thing that I shared already.
Hmm.
Also, the willingness to explore other options, right? So the willingness to think about the world in a flexible way. So
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I think we can have certain belief structures as a therapist, right? We're still human beings. So we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be religious, or we can, be a certain degree of biased in certain categories. But it's important that we kind of put that on the sidelines and say like, I'm interested in like you for you, rather than putting my personal belief structures onto you. So like
Yeah.
my choices for you can't be based on what I think is right personally. It has to be like what I think is right professionally, which are very different things, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, do you think that it's important when, you get to speak with your therapist, should you kind of have that conversation? Should it be like, oh, I am, because spirituality, I feel like, is something that's really important to a lot of people and could really help with, the process if you choose to do that during therapy. Like, should I tell my therapist whether or not I am a spiritual person or religious or whatever? Does that benefit at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about things that are that kind of meaningful. I think, in the same way that we would share if we're dating, I think we need to share those bigger, deeper values with
Yeah.
the therapist, because then we both can decide with the information that we're given if we think we're both a good fit for each other. I think a
Yeah.
therapist can make that decision in the same way that a client can say, like, are we the best fit for each other? Well, I mean, if you're really super spiritual and I'm not spiritual at all, maybe that's enough of a gap to where I can't be helpful. But if I'm really flexible and open minded, I could say, I'm not spiritual at all, but I recognize that value in you. And I'm certainly willing to jump on board and align with you in that shape or form. Right. So like
Yeah.
we can ask those questions, and I think the therapist response is where we need to look. Is there open-mindedness, or is
Hmm.
there hard no, that's not my specialty, I'm not interested? And in that case, you have your answer anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I wanted to just ask a quick question about was like you were mentioning the empathy and the that whole thing being an important part of finding a therapist that exhibits empathy. I'm
Yeah.
really interested in that because I feel like at a default I just assumed that all therapists were empathetic because it's like kind of that line of work. But I suppose there probably isn't. There's probably some people out there who aren't.
Yeah, we're still people.
Yeah, yeah. Or like
We're
they've never.
still people. And,
Yeah,
I'd like to think that, graduate school programs have censored therapists enough, either looked at them during their practicum or their internships, or seen them in a clinical setting enough to say like, you're pretty low on the empathy
empathy.
end of the scale, right? Like maybe this isn't the best choice for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all know that that's not realistic and that,
Hmm.
therapists sneak by, if you
Yeah.
will, and aren't necessarily screened in the right ways. And so, like, I think you could land on a therapist that isn't great with the whole empathy. And
Yeah.
maybe it's not so extreme as not being great with the empathy, but maybe it's like, well, you can't read them, right? So, like, you don't know
Mm.
if they're feeling happy or sad or mad or glad, right? Like, facial expressions, I think, say a lot too. The nonverbals, are you going to show up in a counseling session and like not have a good read on the therapist at all? And that's going to keep you locked down or keep you closed off to the therapeutic process.
Gotcha. So, piggybacking off of that, the whole, being able to read this body language and facial expressions, how does that translate into something like Talkspace where you could just be texting or you don't have video call on? How do you break that barrier?
Yeah, I'm big on, like I said, we have audio recordings. So, like
Hmm.
5-minute audio recordings where if someone, I have clients that are very particular with me. I'm big on like sending out an introductory message that says, like,
Hmm.
I count on your feedback, right? Like, I count on you teaching me about you enough for me to be like really sound clinically. Like, I'm dependent on that view.
Yeah.
So clients are usually a little bit more receptive to me saying, hey, I'm not comfortable being on a live video session at all, or I'm not comfortable like showing you my face at all. And,
Mm.
then I know right from the
Yeah.
beginning that we won't be like seeing each other's faces. So then I'll think about like, okay, an audio message, right? Like, I'm going to send you my voice and then you can hear like tone changes and like
Hmm.
I'm a pretty enthusiastic
Yeah.
being. I'm not gonna lie about that. So it's very easy for my clients to pick up on the fact that like I like them and I want to be
Yeah.
here and like I'm on their journey in like a very um I don't know, I don't want to say like hyper sort of way, but that is kind of my personality. It's a very easy read.
Yeah.
But you can kind of like attest to those characteristics with an audio message that you wouldn't be able to attest to if you were just texting back and forth. Um, but at the same time, I think about my texting back and forth with my client, and I'm also kind of hyper there. And I'll do, I'll do like, an emoji or a laugh out loud or an OMG or like the list goes on in terms of like maybe I send them a funny meme. I
Yeah.
saw a funny meme that reminded me of them, and I'm like, I have to send this to them because it's like so appropriate to the work we're doing together. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of different creative ways that you can incorporate like therapy, like actually therapeutic messaging exchanges that are way more profound than what you would do with your friends and family, but like
Yeah.
do that with enthusiasm or do that with some entertainment and do that with, our clients feeling like, oh, we're in this with them, in their journey and like we're excited to be here. We're happy to share this space with them.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it gets a little tricky, especially if we're talking about a therapist that maybe has more of a reserved personality
Hmm.
or laid back, not necessarily low on the empathy scale, but low on the like giving clients a very clear indication of
Yeah.
their enthusiasm, right? So like there's tricks, and we're constantly like training on those tricks and refining those tricks. We have a large community on Talkspace where we are giving different instructions. We do PowerPoint slides and we have decks that we do to really hone in on like what things going out in a therapeutic messaging format are going to be the most useful in comparison to things that are less useful. So I feel like there's always opportunities to improve there no matter, what phase we get to in the therapeutic online process.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I was gonna say, like, from, I can't see you right now. Like, we can't see each other, but I feel so much of your, like, personality coming through, and I can feel the inflection and, in your tone and your voice. And so, yeah, I think the audio message sounds amazing. Feel like that's the way that I would go if I were using Talkspace. But I'm also curious about the texting. Is it like you can just text whenever, or do you have these, like, set times where it's like this is an hour of us like having a conversation, or is it like I'm freaking out and it's 10 p.m. and I need to talk to somebody and I can message you?
Yeah, clients love this feature because they get to use the room whenever they want, 24/7. So like
Mm.
I often have my clients like, "Hey, when you're going through the actual freak out, could you let me know?
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to get a better read on like, what are the emotions? Like, what is the experience? Can you take me through it, like play by play? So when I do log on and it is my time to respond to you, I've got like this nice chunk of material from the actual experience rather
Yeah.
than like, we calm down eventually, right?
Yeah.
Or we use a coping skill that gets us a little bit more relief, or we've changed settings or environments or people or whatever. So oftentimes I think in a standard therapeutic practice where we're seeing our therapist once a week, we're missing out on like when the really significant bad times happened, the play by play as it went down, and we're reflecting on it when we're calm and and
Yeah.
rational and completely, I'm not going to use normal per se because that definition has changed over the
Yeah.
course of my career. But feeling within normal limits, we're going to get a much different perspective than if we're actually in the moment. And I want to see personally my clients in like their rawest form. I don't want the sugar coated version because I'm less able to help them with sugar coated versions.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's actually something that I really struggle with in terms of like my weekly therapy sessions is by the time I'm here to talk about it, I'm over it. You know, it happened 4 days ago and I had a complete blow up, but now I'm here and I'm like, oh yeah, everything was fine. So it sounds amazing to be able to talk to someone in the moment. I think that people need that a lot of the time. And then, yeah, you have this really cool opportunity to, well, I don't know if cool is the right word, but maybe in a sense, like you have this opportunity to just, yeah, like you said, see it in its rawest form. And I think that that sounds great and is such a cool feature of Talkspace. Someone asked us in chat, and I'm actually really curious about this too. So you mentioned like, being able to text, sending clients memes, whatever. It's this really fine line, this relationship that you have with your therapist, right? And it's kind of like a professional relationship, but you also want to be relatable at the same time. How do you walk that line?
That's a great question. I feel like it has like a million different answers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for me personally, because I have like such a, like I said, kind of hyper, like more enthusiastic, filled with lots of energy type of personality. Like I don't even need caffeine. I'm naturally just kind
Hmm.
of like a I don't know, want to go type. I
Yeah.
think we all have like different types of personalities. I have to work a little bit harder on that front end piece that says like, okay, like I need to be in my raw form, my natural form, but I also can't be so much to where like my clients start to depend on me. Right. So like
Mm.
depend on me as the friend or the family member or the significant partnership, hopefully not, but depending on me in like a friendship sort of way as a deeper level relationship rather than just this outsider perspective, different lens that's kind of neutral in a lot of ways, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want myself and my boisterous personality to interrupt their means of reaching out into the world on their own. So I often try to gauge with them, okay, so you're interested, this is just an example, you're interested in becoming a little bit more social. Like you feel like
Hmm.
because of COVID or because of your personality, you've been a little bit more regressive or isolated or alone and feeling the loneliness. So you want to be more social. So instead of like really getting super hyper focused on our conversations and our exchanges, I want to support you as you show me the efforts that you're making in the world. And I want to
Mm.
be here in alignment with you as you do those things in the world rather than being the spot that you're doing those things or making those efforts.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes that helps clients kind of do like a baby step approach
Hmm.
to branching out into the world to create that zone that they're looking for. So, like, maybe we talked about going on Bumble BFF, and I talked about, maybe we reach out to like 3 people per day over the
Hmm.
course of the week, right? And then, like, we use our time together when we're checking in Monday through Friday to give me an update on those specific reach out attempts that you had.
Gotcha.
Very different. Yeah, very
Yeah.
different than saying like, okay, can I just talk with you about, my social anxiety, and I want you to make me feel good about that spot and make me feel, validated. I think that's part of it. But I'm also interested in, like, eventually you and I not working together, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
eventually, just like a baby bird, we're going to be in our nest, and like we have to like launch and fly on our own. And I want to see that, because that personally and professionally is the most rewarding moment that you and I will have in our
Mm,
relationship, and I don't want to impair that at all. So I think that's, for me, how I'm walking that line. I'm just constantly exploring like what we can do together, rather than stay in the same place where we're just talking about the feelings and the negative experiences, rather than like making any sort of actionable steps in the right direction. Right. So like we
yeah.
can actually be reinforced without a dependence on me.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like I can draw, this is a kind of a stretch, but draw parallels between like you and what you do and your kind of like parasocial relationship that you have to balance to like streaming too. I feel like I understand that a lot in terms of like uh not wanting to create this like codependence, because I'm here for hours a day with, people who are in
Lots
my
of people.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah, people in your community, and you have to kind of walk that line. So it's really interesting to hear how you go about it and like the boundaries and expectations that you set with your clients and everything like that. It's great. I'm gonna take some tips. I'm writing notes. You did mention saying eventually you want eventually you end therapy, you're done, you move on, the whole baby bird thing. Is there like a timeline for that, or I'm assuming it's different for everybody, but like say you just have someone who's coming in for therapy just to do therapy, are they with you for like a year, or I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I think, if obviously different for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
but I think about like average level kind of mental health issues. I think about like an
Yeah.
adjustment disorder, or just like struggling with this particular moment in your life, or, having some extra depression or extra anxiety, but doesn't quite go to like the severe end of the scale ever. It doesn't go into like suicidal ideation, or doesn't go into like losing jobs, or, losing all of your intimate relationships, like kind of
Mm-hmm.
an average level mental health symptomology. I think about 3 months typically for
Oh,
those
okay.
clients, just as a means of like, okay, we're just like kind of shifting things a little bit. We're not necessarily like overhauling your entire life. Um, so yeah, I try to give clients that, okay, we're talking like 3 months minimum, and that's like engaged with me on a regular basis, right? So if we're talking Talkspace, we're talking a Monday through Friday. I'm checking in like twice, maybe 3 times a day, Monday through Friday, take weekends and evenings off for self-care and reflection. If we're talking about regular interaction there, I'm thinking that like a minimum of 3 months. If we're talking like higher level severity end of the scale, we are thinking about suicidal ideation. There have been, psychiatric additions in the past, either medication or hospitalizations, or just kind of like a loneliness feeling, kind of detached from the world, not really being able to maintain employment or go to school for longer
Mm-hmm.
periods of time. Then we're talking like, I would give it minimum a year, a minimum
Yeah,
of
yeah.
6 months, like a much bigger chunk of time. And I would also probably be incorporating other means of help as well, like a group therapy in addition to
Mm.
the work that we're doing, or like AA would be great, if someone is struggling with both addiction and mental health symptoms. So it just depends on the client, but like average level, 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and then more higher level, like I would give yourself a minimum of a year to just start to see like lots of improvement in terms of like day to day living.
Cool. And then, so say you, who like starts the conversation that we're over? Is it like your client comes to you and says, "Okay, like I think I'm finished," or is it something that you kind of bring up to them?
Argue for like my professional and personal experience, I would argue that it's mostly me.
Mm.
It's hey, I've noticed that, you're kind of doing well. Like you have a lot more friends now, and like your intimate partnerships seem to be a little bit more functional. It seems like your work is going pretty smoothly. It seems like
Yeah.
that's kind of like a passion for you, a passion, hobbies, interest, rather than like just something that you're doing for money. So it'd be like a glimpse of their life and like noticing them kind of like pull away a little bit in their interaction with me because they are kind of doing the baby bird thing where
Yeah.
like they're now launching and I'm like, oh, but wait, I was still kind of caring for you. And the client takes the step, but then I'm the one to say like, hey, I've noticed these things. What do you think about this? Do you think you're
Yeah.
ready or you think, not quite? And it's nice because on Talkspace, we have this option of a maintenance plan where you can kind of pull away from the regular like daily interactions and go to like once a week. And so
Oh,
have like a once a week check in as you're kind of phasing out of the therapeutic process after we've talked about it and you're like, yeah, I am good. Maybe I'll come back to you if I'm feeling not so good in the future, but like
yeah.
for now, I can get by with like these once weekly check-ins instead of the daily Monday through Friday. So it is nice to kind of have like a step down phase out rather
Yeah.
than like feeling like I'm going to tell you to launch and you're
Yeah.
on your way and I'm never going to help you again, right? It's not like that.
Yeah, you want to be able to like wean off of it instead of cold turkey. It's really cool that Talkspace has
Totally.
that option to like kind of simmer down. Um, I'm also curious. You mentioned something about group therapy. Can you do that via Talkspace?
So we have couples therapy on
Mm,
Talkspace. We are headed in the direction of like hopefully getting families together in a group. Hopefully, getting larger groups together to be able to offer that experience. We're not quite there yet, but the
mm,
couples counseling is pretty cool stuff.
yeah.
So you can get both partners in the room at the same time, and both partners can show up on the screen and do
Mm,
like the live video session stuff together. And so it's like this collaborative. And I usually wait since I specialize in couples counseling. I have a lot of couples, and I'll usually wait. So like I'll send a message, introducing myself and then asking them for different pieces of information from both sides, and then I wait for one partner to talk to me, and then the other partner, and then I'll loop back around again after like both partners have shared so everyone feels like they have a turn and a space and it's all inclusive. So that's kind of fun and I think it'll only get better the more people we add to that room. I'm big on like the more people that I can get from your life to help you with your individual stuff, the better, right? Because
yeah.
like all of these people are going to have an angle about you that you don't even necessarily know until we're in a session together and your family members like, yeah, they really struggle with that. And the person's like, no, I don't. And the therapist is like,
Yeah.
well, give me some evidence on either side to see whether or not you guys are doing this functionally and I'll make the final call as to
Yeah.
what I've seen professionally. So like the more people the better. I'm really excited about headed in that like kind of group family therapy direction.
Yeah, no, that sounds incredibly exciting. Someone in the
Totally.
chat had asked, and I'm also curious too, like, what's the best way? So their question is, what's the best way to convince a family member or a friend to take therapy? But yeah, like if I have someone in my life who I care about, and say I wanted to do like a group therapy, or even just to encourage them to do so, like, do you have any words or tips or anything like that? That's I'm not telling someone to do it, but if I had to maybe suggest it to someone, how would I go about that?
Yeah, really tricky.
Yeah.
Usually the people that need therapy the most are the ones that are most resistant to
Yeah.
getting therapy, right? So we all have those family members, I think, that are like, hard no, there's nothing wrong with me. It's everybody else's fault, right?
Hmm.
So like I don't know that we ever like forcefully get them to
Yeah.
therapy. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink type of thing. But what I have seen that I feel like is really effective is saying like, okay, so the original person goes to therapy, right?
Hmm.
They're acknowledging that they need it, they really want it, they want to be a better person. They've got this family member that's uncooperative and not willing to kind of like be in that space with them. But I'll say, hey, do you think you could get like a different angle from that particular family member that you're having a problem with? Right. So, like, could you go to that family member and say, like, hey, I'm in therapy, right? We're
Hmm.
authentic and transparent, admitting that everyone needs a therapist, even if you don't think you do, everyone needs one. Right. So we're there in that space, and then we go to the family member and say, like, hey, my therapist wants to know if there's anything about me from your angle that you think I should work on or work towards, or like if you think there's a thing that's going to make me the best version of me, what do you think? Right. So we
Yeah.
start with a tell me what's wrong with me. Usually people are totally comfortable telling us what's wrong with us, not totally comfortable sharing what's wrong with them.
Hmm.
So we set the stage with a, hey, I'm doing therapy. It's valuable for me. It's valuable for the world. And I'm interested in getting your lens because obviously you probably have something, valuable to share with me and my therapist that could really benefit me. So we start there, and you would be shocked at how many people are like, that's weird. I wonder what you're doing in there.
Yeah.
I want to know like how this thing that I've shared is going to land on someone, like what the therapist thinks about it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like this natural segue into like them wanting to know more about their little, spiel or their script that they've given the family member about their therapeutic process. And like, I don't know, I see a lot of couples where, somebody's resistant to the therapeutic process. I ask the partner to give like a little snippet of feedback about this particular partner that's interested in therapy, and then they end up in the therapy with us.
Yeah.
So, like it does happen very slowly, almost so slow that you can't even recognize it, but it does happen. Like there's
Yeah.
some sort of switch that gets people interested if you ask them for some feedback along the way.
Yeah, that is so so interesting. I mean like the cool thing about the people in my life is like I'm pretty sure all of us are in therapy. I used to be that resistant person actually. I was the one who was like, "Oh no, I'm fine. I don't need it." Like I think one of the things that is feeding the stigma around mental health conversations is this idea that like you have to have some sort of mental health issue to seek out therapy, you know? And like that was kind of
Totally.
something that I had just learned from I don't know where, but just something that I learned, which is not true, you know? And so I see all these people around me who don't have any specific like mental health diagnoses, that are going to therapy and loving it. And so finally I'm like, okay, I'll see what this is about. And now I'm like, I'm here talking with you, like preaching, telling my chat all the time how amazing it is. And so, yeah, I think it's really, really cool to just be able to have this conversation in the first place. I think helps breaks down like a lot of walls, lot of walls. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Another question that I had is like, my chat, we're gamers. I'm a gamer. We, whatever. Some of the
Whatever.
yeah, the struggles that we face as quote unquote gamers is like there's a lot of like game related mental strain. People get like, I don't know if you've seen videos of people like breaking their keyboards over losing a game or something like that.
Certainly.
It happens all the time. It's kind of wild, and I'm just curious. Do you have any like general tips for like this kind of community, in terms of like not getting angry at losses or how to not break your keyboard when something goes wrong in a game?
Yeah, my husband is a gamer, and
Oh,
so
cool.
I feel like he's my best guinea pig in terms of like, hey, I think we should try out this new skill and see if it works on you. And if it doesn't,
Yeah,
then maybe I won't recommend it to people. But if it does, great.
yeah,
I see him, sometimes in the shower, like on his phone gaming, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I think that might be a spot where we draw the line here. I think we can take a shower without gaming. Like we can have separate lanes for personal hygiene, and separate that entirely from the gaming atmosphere. So I totally like see this struggle, and
hmm,
I think it's really important. And this is going to sound so stupid, but I think it's really important to like change up our scenarios every now and then, right? So like, okay, gaming, I consider that a lane, right? I consider that like the equivalent of a work lane, school lane, right? So passion,
hmm,
hobby, interests, like I don't want to say economic contribution, even though it kind of is, but I want to think about it in terms of like our identity, like requires our own lane there. So like
yeah,
I don't want to delete the fact that like we need that to be a valuable, like well thought of methodical lane that gets its own individual time. But I also think about these other lanes that need some attention too. And we need to be able to like switch it up a little bit. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm talking about something simple, like 5 minutes. Can you just go outside and like see if you can paint a picture in the clouds? Like come up with a design in the clouds that says, like, I don't know, I can be mindful or present moment in this spot.
Yeah.
Can you go outside and like find some birds chirping? There's nowhere in the world where you're going to go outside and not hear a single bird, I don't think. Or not a setting that I've heard about or, advertised or seen myself or heard myself. But like we can always spend like a good 5 minutes, 2 minutes. James Clear with Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books, he talks about like it doesn't matter how small, like it could be a minute, it can be 2 minutes, but it's something that's different than the day before.
Yeah.
Right. So like we've spent a minute or two doing something that is not gaming that we didn't do yesterday or that we didn't do an hour ago or that, so like that's how the creation of really cool habits starts, is just by shifting it up a little bit to where like, okay, take a 1 to 5 minute break, be mindful, be present, and then regroup again and go back
Hmm.
to gaming. But you took that space to kind of separate yourself entirely from the game structures. So when things come up to where you've lost a game, everything's crashed and burned, and you want to smash your keyboard, you can say like, maybe I use this time right now
Yeah.
in my glory to like go outside and change gears and be mindful, because that's how we decrease the angry outbursts, the emotional reactions that are not impressive, the ones that, if someone were to look at us from the outside, they'd be like, wow, they've lost it.
Yeah.
Um, right? Like we're trying to avoid those moments of other people's recollection, but still like dealing with those moments because they're going to come up in a really healthy way that we've already kind of like prepped ourselves for. So the more we prep ourselves, the more we practice this skill of, kind of detaching for a couple minutes, the more we get to these hard moments and say like, oh, I know that skill. I know that tool. I know what I can do, to create a better rhythm here as
Yeah.
things come up.
Absolutely. It's so funny. It's my chat is like spamming touch grass. One of the the kind of like
I've heard that
ongoing.
before. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
yes.
trying to avoid the touch grass just so I would give you guys a different skill than you
Yes.
already know about.
You gave it to us very eloquently. But I
Yeah.
even like talk about that all the time because I don't think I had a gaming addiction, but it was like bad there for a while during quarantine. It was like all I would do was play video games. Like I would wake up, I would not leave my desk. It was just darkness, like my curtains were always down. I was playing Animal Crossing for like 16 hours a day. And now I've found this really nice balance between like I come on and I stream and I game in the morning and then I turn off my PC. It's just off and like I'm outside doing whatever, being mindful. I haven't done the painting the picture in the cloud thing, but I'm gonna try it next time. And I think it's really really important. And you said it, and I am trying to be the living example of like, yes, I've done this. I've touched grass, and it like really really helps. And I think like in general, I was never really an angry person. I wasn't a keyboard smasher, but like it's just nice to take a break from this. And I love the way that you put it, where like everything is its own lane and gaming has its own lane as like your hobby. I also think like gaming is supposed to be fun, and so if you're smashing your keyboard, you're supposed to be having a good time here. So it's definitely like a moment to refocus for sure.
And honestly, I just think the brain's fascinating in general, honestly. And we're only using like 10% of it in any given time, which is shocking. There's
Yeah.
another 90% that needs to be used. But I just think that like our physical body, there will be another indication other than something that you can control if you're not going to like put that balance in your life yourself, right?
Mm.
Like you're going to get those angry outbursts uncontrollably because you're ignoring the other little indicators. And so your body, brain, whatever connection is saying like, enough's enough. If you're not going to
Yeah.
listen to me, I'm going to do it for you. And it's going to be pretty nasty and gnarly. Right. So
Yeah.
like, I'm all about incorporating these skills before we get to that place where we feel rageful or out of control, or we feel like it could be recognizable to the world. I like to prevent that. I like
Yeah.
to give myself a little bit of love along the way rather than having this long fuse with the most giant boom you've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like helping prevent those outbursts, those yucky moments. Um, so I'm curious if you have any like general things that we didn't touch on that you really wanted to have the opportunity to talk about, and then I also wanted to open it up to chat for any questions that they have. They've asked some throughout, and I haven't gotten to all of them. But chat if you have any questions, and then Dr. Rice, if you had anything that you really wanted to talk about.
Let's do questions because I know like how much people love the Q&A. I do
Yeah.
couples workshops for lasting as well, and they just love the Q&A at the last part of the workshop. So let's turn it over to chat, and
Yeah.
I'll kick in with like any last minute things if I feel like we're not covering something.
Awesome. Something that they asked is, how do you differentiate between taking some time out for yourself and just simply procrastinating?
That's a good one. I often get asked that from my perfectionistic clients.
Mm.
So my answer for them is I think we need to have a checklist item. So when I share the lanes, I think about four categories. I think about our work school, right? Our economic contribution in whatever way we want to define that, passions, hobbies, interests, that kind of thing. I think about our relationships. I think about our physical body. I think about our mind, and how we're viewing the world, our lens. And so I think if we're going through all four categories, we are giving each of those four categories some sort of love. And when I think about the mindfulness category, I'm thinking about like, did you focus on your breath today? Did you spend, you know, 4 minutes essentially focusing on your breath, or 1 minute, and how did that go, right? Like a switch in how we're viewing things. Did
Hmm.
you focus on your physical body today? Did you do something exercise specific, or did you go for a walk, or did you get your heart rate up, or did you give your body some love with your diet? With relationships, have you sent out that text to your partner that says, I think you're on top of the world. I think you're the coolest partner that I could possibly have on the planet. Thank you for for choosing me. Thank you for
Hmm.
being with me. Right? Like, have you made that investment? Have you put energy towards your work or your career accomplishing these longer term goals that you envision? And so when we go through all four categories, we can be rest assured that if we take a break after those four categories, it's to rejuvenate ourselves, and it's more in alignment with self care. If we haven't been able to check box those categories, I think we would then start to think about, oh, am I putting this off? Am I procrastinating? And am I trying to just like, I don't know, get rid of all of these responsibilities that I have because I'm just avoiding them.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a good mental framework to say like, okay, have I done my four categories? Nope. So I'm procrastinating. Have I done them? And now I'm just kind of like kicking back a little bit. Great. Self-care, self-care in
Yeah.
its essence.
Very interesting stuff. I guess it's a completely different perspective than I've ever looked at, that kind of, I've never looked at it that way. So it's interesting to hear what you have to say for sure. Another question that I definitely wanted to touch on was, does Talkspace have options for queer and trans people? I feel like that's the scariest part about looking for someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's a specialty that we put in
Oh.
our clinical focus. So you can go through and like scroll it up. Just like I said with dating, scrolling through, finding a therapist, you can scroll until you find the specialty interest that works for you. And our therapists advertise those specialties. So it's not just specific to that category, it's other categories too, gender identity and let's see, religious versus spiritual, or a Christian focus versus more neutral and secular. Yeah, you can scroll through whatever specialty interest that you're looking for.
That's awesome. It's like you can just filter through like, this is important to me, so I need to have this kind of person. That's great. I think that makes it a lot easier for the user to find someone that works with them.
Yeah, just keep swiping. I
Yep.
tell people, just dating. I mean, you're not going to land on the first one you see. Like, keep
Yeah.
swiping. There's plenty of people to choose from, plenty of
That's
therapists too.
awesome.
Yeah.
Another question is, are any tips on how to deal with growing anxiety about the most random, insignificant things?
Yeah, so it's going to be similar to my tactics for the mental strain that happens, when you guys are gaming, streaming so much. It's going to be the same thing where like, hey, we need to get out of the rabbit hole with a means of something that we can control rather than feeling like the rabbit hole is controlling us.
Hmm.
And so we need to get away from the thoughts that keep trekking us down the wrong path, so to speak. So I think about intensive exercise. I think about like doing burpees, jumping jacks, mountain climbers for like 10 to 15 minutes, right? So, like, enough to where we're really getting our heart rate up. We're not able, honestly, to think about how hard that workout is and our dysfunctional thoughts that we had kind of going into it. So, we're looking to kind of trip up our brain enough to where like it can't just focus on that one particular train of thought anymore. It has to refocus to a different direction. I think about sticking your hand in a bucket of ice water, honestly, or like
Hmm.
splashing ice cold water on your face and just focusing on the sensation of the water and the temperature change rather than
Your hair
your
looks
thoughts,
really
like
nice.
patting your head and rubbing your stomach. It's like impossible to do those
Yeah.
things at once. It's also impossible to think about dysfunctional things while paying attention to the sensation of the temperature change. Box breathing is another thing I talk about with my anxiety folks. It's inhale to 4, hold your breath for 4, and then exhale to a count of 4. You can't pay attention to your breath and your dysfunctional thoughts, your rabbit hole at the same time. Let's see. My final one is focusing on like tensing and relaxing certain muscles, like going through kind of your own deep muscle relaxation. So, like, really tightening your glutes, like really paying attention to that sensation, and then releasing your glutes and paying attention to that sensation. So, the difference between the tightened sensation and the relaxing sensation, we can't think about dysfunctional thoughts and pay attention to that paired muscle breathing relaxation.
Interesting. I wonder how many people in chat did that as you said it. Like everybody's just clenching their glutes at the same time.
Clenching their glutes. Yep. Yep. When in doubt, just clench your glutes. It'll
Clench
all
your
be good.
glutes. There it is.
Love that.
Another good one that chat had was, does it make a difference in picking a therapist? Like, should you find someone who is similar to you so that you feel comfortable, or maybe someone who's different so that you're opened up to different perspectives?
I could see both ends of the road for that. I could
Hmm.
see how someone, like we're choosing a partnership. I could think of, all the ways that my husband and I are so dramatically different. It complements us,
Yeah.
like it makes the relationship drive in really cool ways because he's pushing me in directions that I wouldn't have otherwise thought of. And I'm doing the same thing for him. I also would think about a therapist that way. Like, do you want someone that challenges you to kind of be a better version of you with all these different attributes, or do you want someone that's the same to feel kind of comfortable? And I think honestly, it's just going to be a trial and error thing
Hmm.
where you land on a therapist and you give it a little bit of time. And I think it's totally cool with me, at least, for clients to say like, yeah, I'm just kind of like censoring you, or I'm just kind of like feeling you out. This isn't
Hmm.
official yet, right? Like, I don't want to make this like a grand finale thing. And then, the client themselves can be in that space and say like, do I think this therapist is different and that's a good thing, or do I think they're different and that's kind of a negative thing where I'm never going to be transparent or open? So, like, feeling it out, I feel like, is totally appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I don't know how much time we have. I think we have like 2 more minutes. I have another
3,
question.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't want to keep you over or anything. This is such a good
you're
question though.
you're fine.
Someone in chat asked, how do I initiate a conversation with, they said my parents, but I just want to kind of open it to just people in your life in general. So, how do I initiate a conversation with people in my life about going to therapy, especially if they believe in the harmful stereotypes surrounding therapy?
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, I don't know. And everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like going to our parents and our family members and our friends and being like, I don't know what you've heard, but you know, on my side of the fence, everybody's doing it. It's like
Yeah.
the cool thing to do. And so like I challenge you to ask around, right? If you think like I'm the only one doing this and it's because I'm super dysfunctional and, you know, all the reasons why people stigmatize mental health, like if you think that, I challenge you to like ask people if they're going to therapy too.
Hmm.
Ask other people. Because I think you discover, like you said, Sydney, is that like everybody's kind of doing it now.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're not actively talking about it, it's definitely becoming a thing where it's like, well, do you have a therapist? Because I'm your friend and I don't want to listen to all this garbage all the time. Or, you know, like I'm your family member and I love you, but geez, this is like way too much. You need to like
Yeah.
find some other space to kind of unload this stuff. I would just challenge that family member or that friend to like ask around. It's not just me. Like ask people and be transparent in that way, and you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked at what people tell you.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it is, it's kind of like everybody around me was doing it, so it was really easy to open up that conversation. And I feel like with, you know, people, your parents, whoever you want to tell that, you know, this is something that you're interested in, it's like, oh, well, Billy from school's doing it, and so is my teacher, like, and also my TA, like everybody's kind of exploring this right now and taking care of their mental health, and it's really really great to see these boundaries kind of breaking down. And I hope that this conversation helped the same for everybody in chat. I know it definitely is really refreshing for me, and I'm super appreciative, Dr. Rice, of you being here today and chatting with us. It meant a lot, and I think my chat really enjoyed it. We have these conversations a lot, so it's really nice to have, you know, you, a professional, like coming in and taking your time out of your day to do this with us and talk to us about Talkspace.
I am so grateful to be here. I'm just feeling like on top of the world anytime I get a chance to share like how cool I think mental health is. You know, obviously I'm
Yeah.
biased, but anytime I get a chance to share, I'm happy to do so. So I'm so grateful that you guys let me participate in the chat today, and I hope I hear from you guys soon. You know, in some sort of capacity. Hey, right, we have more questions that we need answered, or we need more help, or can you help us navigate, you know, X, Y, and Z? I hope that you guys would reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And check out Talkspace, of course, exclamation point Talkspace in chat. There's a little discount code, also a link to Talkspace, and you know, you get the opportunity to learn more about it. Anything that we missed from today, you follow that link and it tells you all of the stuff there. But yeah, thank you again so much, Dr. Rice. It was such a pleasure. We all got to learn something
So
new
cool.
today, so it was awesome. So thank you so much for your energy and your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, Sydney. It was nice meeting you. I hope
Nice to
everyone
meet
takes
you.
care on this fine Wednesday.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Whoa, thank you.
All right,
See ya.
bye-bye. Ah, she was so sweet. She was the sweetest. How awesome was she? What did you think, chat? That was fun, huh? I feel very like motivated by that. I feel I'm inspired. I'm so inspired by this conversation that we just got to have. I hope you guys enjoyed your time with Dr. Rice. Again, I want to say thank you so much to Talkspace for sponsoring today's stream, for giving us this opportunity to sit down with Dr. Rice and talk about all of this. Like, get to talk about mental health, we get to talk about the stigma, we get to talk about, you know, finding a therapist, hearing firsthand from a therapist as well. So I think that was really, really great, and I'm happy with it. I hope that you guys enjoyed the stream as well. I hope you got some of your question answered. I know that there were some questions that were definitely missed. I felt like, I was like, oh, an hour is such a long time, and then I'm sitting here chatting with this person who's like super charismatic and obviously incredibly passionate about her work, and it's like, I want to ask a million questions, but what, you know, now at first it was like, oh my gosh, we have an hour, that's such a long time, and now it's like, oh my gosh, we only had an hour, I want to pick her brain more. But yeah, I think that was great, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, thank you so much for the Talkspace for sponsoring the stream, exclamation point Talkspace, and also a link down in my panel. You can get $120 off when you start with Talkspace using code Sydeon, and yeah, there's like the little link that sends you there as well to learn more about Talkspace if you are interested. So chat, thank you guys for being awesome and hanging out and doing this part of the stream with me. I had a good time, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning, okay? Bye bye.